Welcome back to the Ed Show. Thanks for watching tonight. You know, with Benghazi fever just filling the headlines and the airwaves across America, you know, the headlines, all about Benghazi, right? Wait a minute. It's National Charter Schools Week, and it's gone virtually unnoticed. But be aware, John Boehner pushed the charter school agenda one step further this week. We don't have money for unemployed people or anything else or higher education, but the speaker is supporting legislation which would pour even more funding into the exclusionary program.
The waiting list for getting into charter schools has about 1 million names on it, and I'm not surprised at all. Charter schools work. They're succeeding at a time when, let's face it, many traditional schools are struggling. In our area, we currently have more than half a dozen charter schools. But there could be a whole lot more if the education establishment would just get out of our way.
Charter schools work? You mean, Mr. Speaker, they all work, but you only cite just a few in your neighborhood? Boehner is the perfect spokesman for charter schools. Public education surge is struggling, no question about it, thanks to the Republican mission to stamp out all of its resources. No federal funding. That's what their world is all about. And it's billed as an opportunity for a premier education. The program, I think, is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Charter schools are an effort to kill teachers' unions and shortcut funding for public education. Now a new report is out, published by the Center for Popular Democracy and Integrity in Education. Highlights rampant abuse in the charter school system. That would be rampant abuse in the charter school system. We all on the same page now? How about over $100 million of taxpayer money has been lost to waste and fraud in not one, but 15 states alone? Charter schools are a business with one bottom line. It's the money. We're not talking about educating children unless we mean all of our children, right? Charter schools can pick and choose their students, leaving other children by the wayside. Now, the documented fraud found in this study underscores the institutional failure. This isn't about Republicans and Democrats. This is about children in America. Not some, all of them. The stakes are too high. But here we have a Congress that wants to fork more money into a system that they claim is perfect, but it's ridden with fraud. Joining me tonight, our rapid response panel, Ruth Conniff, editor of the Progressive Magazine, and also Florida State Senator Dwight Bullard. Great to have both of you with us tonight. Ruth, you first. This fraud that was found in 15 states, is this a surprise to you?
Well, not really, Ed. I mean, I think that we've seen one report after another talking about how charter schools, which are not regulated and supervised the same way that regular public schools are, find a way to extract money. And there's something fundamentally wrong with saying that, as Boehner said, competition is the answer. If public schools are underfunded, and there really is a direct link between both the poverty of their student populations and the underfunding of the schools and their performance on standardized tests, that the answer is to bring in a business that looks at these poor kids and says, how can I make money off this situation? And so here you see the most extreme examples. You see, even in the nonprofit charter world, you see people who are paying the heads of these organizations as more than the president of the United States, and then they're running off with public funds to do things like going on a shopping spree. But even short of that, there's something wrong with trying to serve poor kids with a cheaper product that allows you to extract money to take home instead of pouring more resources into those schools and those kids.
State Senator Bullard, why are some Democrats lending their support to this new legislation in Congress, which of course funnels more money into charter school systems that have got fraud in 15 states? What's your reaction to that, and how is it playing out in Florida?
Well, I can tell you, Ed, that it's no surprise to me to see Democrats sort of jumping on board with this notion. These private charter school management companies have been running rampant here in Florida for some time and have shown their influence financially in both campaigns and in other ways in influencing the process. What we find here in Florida, however, is that we're actually on the precipice of a federal investigation into these charter school management companies, not only for misappropriations of funds, but for practices that are uncharacteristic of a truly regulated industry.
I mean, is there public pushback on this? And then here you have John Boehner saying, yeah, we got to throw more money at it. What about that, Senator?
Well, I mean, the reality is there needs to be a better level of oversight, both at the federal level and here at the state level, in terms of what these companies do. When we think about Florida, for instance, where charter schools have been in existence since 1996, we've seen time and time again a disproportionate failure rate among charter schools versus their public school counterparts. And so, of course, the push is, well, let's create apples to apples comparisons. There's a reluctance on the part of those management companies to say, all right, we want to be compared the same way as our public school counterparts, but in most regards, they're getting additional streams of funding outside of private resources from the public sector that are helping to get supplies, get iPads, get you name it, but then taxing the public school for things like IEPs or use of their sports facilities. So it's definitely not fair. And we've seen time and time again that these management companies and these charter schools seem to not work in the best interest of the students.
Yeah. And Ruth, there's no doubt whenever there's a chance for a dollar to be made, somebody's going to get the short end of the change. And this is not an equal playing field for every kid in America. I mean, charter schools aren't for everybody. And when you start taking resources away, where is this going? Because they're pushing a hard conservative agenda. Where is this going, Ruth?
Well, I think what's happening is in the states there are different pieces of legislation. Here in Wisconsin, there's a proposed piece of legislation we expect to see come up again next term that would label public schools as failing. It would insist that 5% of our state schools be labeled as failing, and it would move charter operators in to take over those schools. Never mind that the biggest national study by Stanford of these charter schools is that they perform more poorly, or 17% a little bit better than the public schools. 17%, that's a great minority, better than the public schools. So they're not doing better, but they're getting this opportunity to move in, take over public schools, and then while the public schools are labeled failing if they get Fs on a overall assessment of their tests for 2 years in a row, the charter schools get a pass. They get 8 years. They can get as many Fs as they want. So it's bringing these business interests in, giving them a totally different set of standards, low accountability, and they're looking for a way to make money. And it just fundamentally is a move away from democracy, away from the idea of a public good that public education serves, and siphoning public funds into the pockets of these few individuals. So it's not a big surprise that you see people taking advantage of that.
And Senator Bullard, is this going to be a big issue in the governor's race down in Florida? I know Charlie Crist is a big public school advocate. He's got the teachers union big time behind him. How's it play out?
Well, it's definitely going to be up for discussion. I mean, we have a governor who over the last 4 years has fast-tracked more school reform or privatization efforts, both within schools, within the correction system, than any other governor we've had in the past. And so it is going to be a central issue in the governor's race, and one that Governor Scott's going to have to answer for when he's running for office or running for re-election.
It just seems to me that all of these charter schools, where they're flourishing is where you're going to find a conservative state legislature and a conservative governor who just can't get enough of this stuff. Because I think the root of it, obviously, is to make a dollar, but the other part of the equation is to get rid of the teachers' unions, which, of course, is very effective in every state in the union when it comes to getting things legislatively done. State Senator Dwight Bullard and also Ruth Conniff of the Progressive Magazine. Great to have both of you with us tonight. Thanks so much. Coming up, Cliven Bundy's School of History. Pretenders is next. Stick around.